Hi, good afternoon everyone. This is Valentina from Kachara Forest Retreat in Bentong Pahang, Malaysia. During my time with my teacher, His Eminence, the 25th Tsem Rinpoche, he had exposed me to many individuals who had the courage to fight for what they believe in, and one of them is Paul Robeson. Not only Rinpoche asked me to write an article about him, which you can read on tsemrinpoche.com, but also to share about him. So this is his story.
Paul Robeson was a famous Hollywood actor, singer, and a stage performer. But what makes him an extraordinary man was although he could have easily lived a comfortable life, Robeson chose to use his fame and powerful voice to defend his belief and those who were less fortunate, even if it means risking his career and reputation. Paul Robeson was born in Princeton, New Jersey in 1898. His father, William Drew Robeson, was a Presbyterian church minister who had escaped slavery. His mother, Maria Louisa, was from a prominent Quaker family. Robeson was an intelligent student with many talents. He excelled not only in his studies, but also in music, sports, and performing arts. His many talents earned him an athletic scholarship from Rutgers University. He was the first African American to be enrolled in that university. And he joined their football team too. Despite his good fortune, Robson experienced racial discrimination due to his skin color. In his sophomore year, a Southern American team refused to play with a black man on the field. As a result, Robson was benched. Robson started to question why African Americans were not given the same opportunities as white people, although they too fought for America in the First World War. Robson continued his graduate studies at Columbia Law School. During this time, Robson met and developed a relationship with a fellow schoolmate, Eslanda Goody, or better known as Essie. After 1 year of courtship, Robson and Essie were married in August 1921. After his graduation, Robson had a short career at a law firm. However, he experienced racial discrimination at his workplace, and with his wife's encouragement, he decided to pursue a career as an actor instead. Essie gave up her aspiration to study medicine and took on the role of her husband's business manager. She launched his acting career while working in the hospital to support herself and her husband. In 1928, Robson landed the role of Joe in the wildly successful musical Showboat at the Theatre Royal in London. Although he was more fortunate than many African Americans of his day, Robson still experienced racial discriminations. He was refused a seat at the Savoy due to his skin color. The incident prompted him to issue a press release about this unpleasant experience and insult. Robson went on to receive many successful film and stage roles. Later on, he explored further about his root African culture and learned Swahili language at the School of Oriental and African Studies. When he went back to Britain, Robson complained to the media that the African Americans in the United States have rejected their culture and that he doesn't want to be associated with European opera as it has no connection with his culture. His controversial comments invited negative reaction from the American press. The New York Amsterdam News sarcastically remarked that Robson made a fool of himself. In December 1934, Sergei Eisenstein, a Soviet film director, invited Robson and Essie to the Soviet Union. Robson was very impressed. He said that, "Here I am not a Negro, but a human being for the first time in my life. I walk in full human dignity." So impressed was he with the treatment he received in the Soviet Union, Robson decided to send his only son to continue his education there to protect him from racism. The year 1938 seemed to be the peak of his career. American Motion Picture Herald named Robson as the 10th most popular star in British cinema. As he became more successful, Robson began to use his fame for political activism. Robson business agents was concerned about how his political activism would affect his career. However, Robeson believed that the many contemporary events that happened around the world were more important than any commercial interests. He recorded his famous message: "The artist must take sides. He must elect to fight for freedom or slavery. I have made my choice. I had no alternative." After completing his last British film, Robeson and his family returned to the United States and settled in Enfield, Connecticut. He was then hired to perform an American patriotic song, Ballad for Americans. However, during the tour to promote the song, Robeson had an unpleasant experience due to racism. He found that the only hotel that was willing to accept him because of his skin color was the Beverly Wilshire Hotel. Even so, he was required to register under a different name. To support the people of his race, he stationed himself at the hotel lobby to ensure that the next time blacks come through, they will have a place to stay. On July 25, 1946, a white supremacist mob attacked, shot, and murdered two African American couples on a dirt road near Moore Fort Bridge. This tragic incident attracted national attention and became known as the Moore Fort lynching. After the mass lynching incident, Robeson met with President Thurman and said that if the president did not enact the legislation to end lynching, the Negroes will defend themselves. President Thurman immediately terminated the meeting with Robeson. Robeson then made a public call for the Congress to pass the anti-lynching legislation and establish the American Crusade against lynching organizations. In the late 1940s to the mid-1950s, McCarthyism, a practice that was rampant in the United States. This era was characterized with accusations of treason and subversion without regard for proper evidence. McCarthyism era was triggered by the fear of espionage by Soviet agents and communist influence in the American institutions. Robeson's activism and sympathy with the Soviet Union raised suspicions about his communist tendencies. In the subsequent years, Robeson began to feel the pinch of his political activism. His concert performances were cancelled, and he was forced to find work abroad. During his overseas tour, Robeson continued his activism and refused to lay low. He made a speech at the World Peace Council whereby he was accused of equating the United States of America with a fascist state. After this speech, Robeson received much criticism and was viewed as the enemy of mainstream America. He refused to submit to public criticism and continued his controversial political activities, such as supporting the 12 defendants in the Smith Axe trials of suspected Communist Party leaders. In 1949, Robeson made a speech at the Paris Peace Congress that alarmed many in his native country. This is the excerpt of his speech. "We in America do not forget that it was on the backs of white workers from Europe and on the backs of millions of blacks that the wealth of America was built, and we are resolved to share it equally. We reject any historical raving that urge us to make war on anyone. Our will to fight for peace is strong. We shall not make war on anyone. We shall not make war on the Soviet Union." Everything became worse for Robeson after that. His appearance on NBC's Eleanor Roosevelt television program was also cancelled. The State Department denied him a passport and therefore restricted his movement within the United States. Regardless of the pressure and the backlash to his career, Robeson remained true to his activism. On December 17, 1951, he presented "We Charge Genocide," an anti-lynching petition to the United Nations. While the McCarthyism put a halt to Robeson's career and restricted his movement, the parties he championed supported him. In May 1952, the labor unions in Canada and the United States held an international peace art concert on the border between Washington State in the United States and the British Columbia province in Canada. The labor union held three similar concerts within the next 3 years. Aneurin Bevan, a Welsh politician, also encouraged Robeson to record several radio concerts for his supporters in Wales. In 1956, Robeson invoked the Fifth Amendment and refused to declare his political affiliation. He was summoned after refusing to sign an affidavit to confirm that he was not a communist. He said, "Because my father was a slave and my people died to build the United States, and I'm going to stay here and have a part of it just like you, and no fascist-minded people will drive me from it. Whether I am or not a communist is irrelevant. The question is whether American citizens, regardless of their political beliefs or sympathy, may enjoy their constitutional rights." Although his recordings and movies were removed from public distributions in the United States, his political activism did not dim his popularity overseas. In 1956, Topic Records in the United Kingdom released a single from Robeson titled Joe Hill, an early 20th century labor activist. Joe Hill became the third popular song on Desert Island Disc, a BBC radio program, and the top 14 most popular song for British politicians. In 1956, Robeson performed at two concerts, one in Toronto and the other at Sudbury, Ontario, after he was given a one-time permission to travel to Canada due to public pressure. In June 1958, the United States Supreme Court, via Kent versus Dulles, ruled that the rights to travel is part of the liberty of which a citizen cannot be deprived without due process of the law under the Fifth Amendment. Following this landmark decision, Robeson's passport was restored, and in the same year, he published his autobiography titled Here I Stand. Upon receiving his passport, he went on a world tour. He performed classic Russian songs at the Lenin Stadium, Moscow, and received a thunderous reception. He and his wife Essie then went to Yalta to meet with Nikita Khrushchev and to rest. In October 1959, Robeson became the first African American performer to sing at St. Paul's Cathedral. Robeson was also the first artist to perform at the construction site of the Sydney Opera House. After his performance at the Brisbane Festival Hall, Robeson and his wife visited Auckland, New Zealand. There, Robeson became a staunch defender of the Maoris' people's rights and denounced the inequality faced by the Maoris. On January 23, 1976, Robeson suffered a stroke and passed away from the complications. He was 77 years old. Today, Paul Robeson is remembered as the first African American actor who achieved international prominence and a symbol of African American dignity and a spokesperson for the oppressed.
Hi, so that is my sharing about Paul Robeson. May it inspire those who have the chance to watch this video. Thank you.